This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. Group of 7 countries want to keep the price cap on Russian crude at $60 a barrel, the Wall Street Journal reported on Wednesday, citing people familiar with the matter. The European Commission warned the member states of the bloc about G7's position and said that US President Biden had told European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen last week there was no appetite in Washington for adjusting the oil sanctions, the report added.
U.S. crude oil stockpiles rose last week even as oil refineries ramped up utilization following a strong maintenance season. While gasoline and distillate inventories fell, the Energy Information Administration said on Wednesday. Crude inventories rose by 1.6 million barrels in the week to March 10 to 480.1 million barrels, compared with analysts' expectations in a Reuters poll for a 1.2 million barrel rise. Fueling the rise was an increase in Gulf Coast crude stockpiles, which climbed to their highest since April 2021, the data showed. Meanwhile, East Coast crude inventories fell to their lowest on record.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Oil prices clawed back some ground on Thursday after sliding to 15-month lows in the previous session as markets calmed somewhat after Credit Suisse was thrown a financial lifeline by Swiss regulators. But, battered by fears of growing stress on banks worldwide, market sentiment remained fragile with both benchmarks giving up some early Thursday gains that saw Brent climb by more than $1. As of 0742 GMT, Brent crude futures were up 60 cents or 0.8% to $74.29 per barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures, WTI, rose 47 cents or 0.7% to $68.08 a barrel.
Global oil demand is edging up slowly but is set for a huge boost from resumed air travel and China's economic reopening after COVID-19 curbs, the International Energy Agency said on Wednesday. Global oil demand growth started 2023 with a whimper but is projected to end the year with a bang, the Paris-based agency said in its monthly oil report. Rebounding jet fuel use and a resurgent China will see an overall 1Q4Q ramp-up of 3.2 million barrels per day, BPD, the largest relative in-year increase since 2010.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
London copper prices bounced back on Thursday from a more than 2-month low in the previous session after authorities pledged liquidity support to Swiss bank Credit Suisse and consumption improved in top consumer China. Credit Suisse on Thursday said it would borrow up to $54 billion from the Swiss central bank to shore up liquidity and investor confidence after a slump in its shares intensified fears about a global banking crisis. 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange, LME, rose 1% to $8,589 a ton by 0831 GMT. The contract hit $8,489.50 in the previous session for its lowest since January 6.
Dalian and Singapore iron ore futures slumped on Thursday, along with steel benchmarks in China as sentiment soured, mirroring a broader risk aversion triggered by fears of a banking crisis. Top steel producer China's reported plan to again cut annual crude steel production this year also weighed on iron ore and other steelmaking ingredients, along with tepid Chinese property sector data. The most traded May iron ore on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange ended daytime trade 2.8% lower at 902 yuan a ton after earlier hitting 897 yuan and 50 fen, its weakest since March 9. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Chicago corn rose for a third consecutive session on Thursday, supported by strong Chinese demand and uncertainty over a Black Sea export deal, although gains were limited by a U.S. banking crisis. Wheat slid for the first time in 5 sessions, while soybeans gained ground. The most active corn contract on the Chicago Board of Trade rose 0.1% to $6.27 a bushel. As of 0227 GMT. Wheat fell 0.6% to $6.98 minus 1/4 a bushel, and soybean added 0.2% to 14.921 a bushel. Corn prices rose after the U.S. Department of Agriculture confirmed sales of 667,000 tons of U.S. corn to China for 2022-23 delivery.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.